Joaquin El Chapo Guzman.
The notorious El Chapo.
Joaquin El Chapo Guzman.
El Chapo.
El Chapo.
El Chapo.
El Chapo.
The most dangerous drug traffickers in the world.
On the 4th of April, 1957, one of the most notorious drug lords the world has ever seen was born. His full name was Joaquin Archivaldo Guzman Loera. Today, many know him as El Chapo, Spanish for shorty, due to his 5'6" stature. Born in northwest Mexico in the community of La Tuna, Guzman was the oldest of 7 children. His father would pose as a cattle rancher, but was thought to have been an opium poppy farmer, which can be used to make opium as well as heroin. His father was also an alcoholic and would often abuse his family. This put additional strain on the young Guzman, who was unable to defend himself or his siblings due to his short frame. His ambitions, however, were prominent from a young age. For example, he wore fake jewellery when visiting family members and sold oranges to other peasant farmers. His mother, in an interview, stated that he'd count and recount coloured paper, which looked real enough to Guzman to be paper money. His first venture into the criminal enterprise came at the age of 15, when he created a marijuana plantation along with his cousins. It was at this time that he earned the nickname El Chapo. He used this plantation to establish a connection with Hector Luis Palma Salazar, also known as El Güero in the 1970s, a former drug lord whose entire family was brutally murdered by rival cartels. In the 1980s, El Chapo went to work for another kingpin in the narcotics industry, who went by the name of Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo. He was known as the godfather of the Guadalajara cartel. The Guadalajara cartel is a huge topic on its own, but in simple terms, it used to be one of the largest drug cartels in Mexico that would smuggle drugs into the US. Gallardo was the boss of the narcotics industry at the time, controlling the shipment of drugs from South America to the US via Mexico. Guzman oversaw shipments. During these times, El Chapo demonstrated a ruthless and vindictive nature. Late shipments weren't tolerated. Any smuggler that failed to arrive on time would be shot in the head by the man himself. One man was gunned down for refusing to shake his hand. Slowly but surely, El Chapo was moving up in the world. However, in 1989, Mexico arrested Gallardo for the murder of Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, agent Enrique Camarena Salazar. So, with him out of the picture, the Guadalajara cartel was divided up into different factions by each of the members. The cartels that emerged from this division were the Sinaloa cartel and a few others. Guzman took control of the Sinaloa cartel, along with El Güero, who was mentioned earlier. The Sinaloa cartel would become a murderous criminal organization responsible for the deaths of thousands during Mexico's violent drug wars. US intelligence deemed the Sinaloa cartel to be the most powerful and dangerous drug cartel in the world, due to its vast army of hitmen and its deep involvement in police, political, and military corruption. Examples of the twisted violence that occurred in Mexico included melting people in acid, stitching faces onto footballs, and beheadings. In the 1990s, El Chapo honed his operations. He pioneered a magnificent feat of architecture and engineering, underground tunnels, which were described as something out of a James Bond movie. He used them to transport massive amounts of all kinds of drugs across the border at speed, even marijuana. Marijuana has a distinctive smell, but obviously can't be detected underground. The Sinaloa cartel became the biggest traffickers of drugs to the US, with El Chapo profiting heavily alongside. He entered the Forbes list of the world's richest men in 2009 at number 701, with an estimated worth of $1 billion US. However, it's impossible to forget El Chapo's exhaustive arrest record, which he is infamous for. In 1993, a cardinal was shot dead in a turf war, and Guzman was among those blamed. He was arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison. However, he escaped in 2001, after he bribed security guards and escaped, supposedly, in a laundry car. Others say he dressed up as a Fed and escaped within the raid to look for himself. What's more, he enjoyed a life of luxury in prison, smuggling in prostitutes and Viagra, according to reports in Mexico. After he was released, he exacted revenge on hundreds, beheading and shooting any that had gotten in his way. In 2014, he was captured again, but made an even more stunning escape in July 2015, only a year later. His accomplices dug a mile-long tunnel that led directly from his prison cell to a neighborhood of Santa Juanita. These tunnels were incredibly elaborate. They had ventilation, lighting, and even stairs. He had escaped through a hole under the shower in his cell. Mexican TV stations later aired footage that showed that guards had failed to act when loud hammering was heard from inside Guzman's cell, suggesting that they, too, could have been bribed. He had now escaped from prison twice. However, in 2016, El Chapo's luck finally ended. He was tracked down in North Sinaloa in a raid by the Mexican Marines and the DEA. He was then extradited to the US, where he's currently serving a life sentence plus 30 years, just in case a life sentence wasn't enough, in the ADX Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. El Chapo's current worth is around $3 billion US, and throughout his criminal life, was said to have handled over $12 billion worth of drugs. This may only be a conservative estimate, however, with the true amount remaining unknown. He made so much money that he once owned a pair of yachts, a fleet of Learjets, and a private zoo, with tigers, crocodiles, and panthers. His cartel was no match for the Mexican government, and even the US government was left with hefty blows after locking horns with El Chapo. Some viewed him as a god, others despised him with all their life. But what cannot be taken away from El Chapo is his everlasting legacy as one of the biggest drug barons the world has ever seen.